There comes a moment in life when you realize that silence has more power than noise, that being unseen can bring more peace than being admired, and that not every battle is worth fighting, especially the ones that demand you to lose yourself just to prove a point. We live in a world addicted to attention. Everyone wants to be noticed, heard, validated, but peace is different. Peace is quiet. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't need applause. It just is. And the day you choose peace over attention, you begin to experience freedom in its purest form. We live in a world that thrives on attention. Every day we wake up and step into a digital arena where applause is currency and validation feels like survival. We post, we share, we compare, hoping someone out there sees us, approves of us, maybe even envies us. But the truth is, most of us are chasing ghosts. Attention feels good for a moment, like sunlight on your skin, but it fades just as quickly. And once it's gone, we're left craving the next hit, the next like, the next nod of approval that tells us we're enough. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what happens when the crowd goes quiet, when the notifications stop buzzing, when no one is watching? Who are you then? That silence can feel heavy, almost unbearable, because it forces you to face yourself without filters, without applause. Most people don't realize that the pursuit of validation is a trap. It keeps you running in circles, seeking something that can only come from within. When you start believing your worth depends on how others see you, you give them power over your peace. You let them decide when you're happy and when you're broken. And that's a dangerous exchange because people's attention is fickle. One day they adore you, the next day they forget you. The world moves fast, trends change, and what once made you shine can easily make you disappear. I've seen it in so many people, artists, creators, dreamers, who started out with passion, but somewhere along the way began chasing approval instead of purpose. They stopped creating from the heart and started performing for applause. And that's when something inside them began to die. The spark that made them unique faded under the weight of constant comparison. We see it online every day, people smiling through exhaustion, pretending to be fine, measuring their value by numbers on a screen. There's a study from Harvard that says sharing about ourselves activates the same pleasure centers in the brain as money or food. That's how addictive attention is. It tricks the brain into thinking we're fulfilled. But it's an illusion. It's surface-level satisfaction that never reaches the soul. True fulfillment doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being at peace with who you are, even when no one's watching. Think about the times you felt most alive. Maybe it wasn't when you were praised, but when you were alone doing something that made you lose track of time. When you wrote something honest, created something meaningful, helped someone quietly, or stood by your values even when it wasn't popular. That's real validation. The kind that doesn't need witnesses. The irony is, the moment you stop chasing validation, you start attracting genuine respect. People can sense authenticity. It's magnetic. When you know who you are, when you don't bend to please the crowd, you move differently. You speak less but say more. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth because your presence already carries it. We all crave connection, and that's human. But there's a difference between being connected and being dependent. The world will always offer you mirrors that distort your reflection. Some will make you look smaller, others larger, but neither show the truth. Only when you stop looking outward for proof of who you are, can you finally see yourself clearly. So maybe the goal isn't to be noticed. Maybe it's to be whole, to build a life so grounded in self-respect that even when the applause fades, your peace remains untouched. Because attention is borrowed, but peace is earned. And once you find that, you'll never need to chase illusions again. Every day we wake up with a limited amount of energy. It's like a battery, finite, precious, and easily drained by things that don't deserve it. Yet most of us give our energy away so easily. We hand it over to pointless arguments, to people who misunderstand us, to situations that pull us into frustration or negativity. We allow the world to dictate how we feel, forgetting that our peace is something we must guard, not gamble with. Protecting your inner energy is not about isolation, it's about awareness. It's about recognizing that not everything deserves a reaction. Sometimes silence speaks louder than anger. Sometimes walking away is stronger than staying to prove a point. You learn that every time you engage in meaningless conflict, you're spending a part of yourself that you can never get back. It's like paying attention with your soul, and you only have so much to give. We've all been there. Someone says something cruel or unfair, and every instinct screams to respond, to defend yourself, to be understood. But peace is not found in convincing others. It's found in not needing to. The truth doesn't lose its power just because someone refuses to see it. You don't need to exhaust yourself trying to fix what someone else refuses to understand. Protecting your energy means choosing calm over chaos, clarity over confusion. It's choosing to be the still point in a spinning world. Think about this. When you spend your energy on anger, resentment, or revenge, what's left for joy, creativity, or love? Imagine your energy as light. The more you let negativity consume you, the dimmer it becomes. And soon, you start wondering why everything feels heavy, why life feels gray. But the moment you start saying no to drama, to gossip, to constant distraction, you start to feel lighter. You start reclaiming your power piece by piece. There's a quiet strength in people who protect their energy. They don't rush to respond. They don't get pulled into every emotional storm. They understand that not everything needs their attention. They listen, observe, and decide whether something is worth their peace. It's not indifference, it's wisdom. You begin to see that protecting your inner world is an act of self-respect. It's not about shutting others out. It's about letting the right things in. I once knew someone who was constantly surrounded by noise, always reacting, always defending, always fighting battles that didn't matter. Over time, you could see the exhaustion in their eyes. They weren't living, they were surviving. But the day they learned to pause, to take a breath before reacting, something changed. They discovered that peace isn't a gift someone gives you. It's a boundary you create, and that boundary changes everything. Protecting your energy also means forgiving when it's hard, not because others deserve it, but because you deserve peace. It means letting go of grudges that weigh you down. It means recognizing that you can't control how others act, but you can control how long you let it affect you. That's the real power, not control over others, but mastery over yourself. You start to realize that your attention is sacred. Whatever you give it to grows. If you focus on bitterness, it expands. If you nurture peace, it deepens. Protecting your energy is choosing where that attention goes. It's understanding that every reaction is a choice, every thought is a seed, and every moment of peace is something you must protect fiercely. Because one day you'll look back and realize that the things you once fought for weren't worth the exhaustion. That your silence said more than your words ever could. That peace was never about escaping the world, but learning to stand still in the middle of it and remain unshaken. We live in a time where silence feels almost impossible. Every moment is filled with noise, notifications, opinions, breaking news, endless scrolling. We're surrounded by voices that demand our attention, pulling us in every direction. It's like standing in the middle of a crowded room where everyone is shouting, and all you want is to hear your own heartbeat. But that's the thing. Most people can't anymore. They've forgotten the sound of their own soul. They've forgotten the power that exists in stillness. Stillness isn't about doing nothing. It's about being fully present in everything. It's the quiet awareness that allows you to see through the noise, to hear the truth beneath the chaos. The world keeps telling us to move faster, to do more, to stay busy. But stillness whispers a different message. It says, slow down, breathe, listen. There's wisdom in silence that noise will never teach you. When you're still, you begin to notice things that were always there but hidden under the rush of life. The way the light shifts through a window, the rhythm of your breath, the subtle thoughts that reveal what you truly feel. In stillness, you meet yourself without distraction, and that's not always easy, because when you stop running, everything you've been avoiding finally catches up to you. The pain, the fears, the regrets, they all surface. But that's where healing begins. You can't outrun your shadows forever. Stillness invites you to face them, understand them, and eventually make peace with them. We live in an age where people mistake busyness for purpose. But doing more doesn't mean you're living more. Sometimes it means you're just running further away from yourself. The world glorifies the hustle, the constant motion, the never-ending pursuit of more. Yet the people who seem most grounded, most at peace, are the ones who've learned how to pause. They understand that clarity doesn't come from movement, it comes from stillness. It's in that quiet space where the noise fades and the truth becomes clear. Think about the ocean for a moment. When it's stormy, you can't see what's beneath the surface. But when the water is calm, everything becomes visible. That's how the mind works. When your thoughts are turbulent, it's impossible to see clearly. But when you quiet the noise, when you become still, insight begins to rise from the depths. You start to see what truly matters, what deserves your energy, and what was just distraction disguised as importance. Stillness isn't passive, it's powerful. It takes strength to stop reacting, to pause before responding, to choose calm when chaos surrounds you. It's not weakness to take a step back, it's wisdom. Because when you're still, you can see the bigger picture. You stop living as a reaction to the world and start creating from a place of intention. You stop letting others dictate your rhythm and begin moving at the pace of your own soul. There's a story I once heard about a man who spent years searching for peace. He traveled everywhere, mountains, temples, cities, looking for it. Finally, exhausted, he sat by a river and just listened. The sound of the water, the wind, the silence between each breath. And in that moment, he realized peace was never out there. It was always within him, waiting for him to be still enough to feel it. That's the beauty of stillness. It reconnects you to life in its simplest form. It reminds you that you don't have to chase what's already yours. The peace you're looking for doesn't exist in noise or validation or endless motion. It exists in presence, in being fully here, right now. And when you learn to embrace that stillness, the world begins to move differently. You begin to move differently. The chaos loses its grip, the noise loses its weight, and for the first time, you truly hear yourself again. There's a quiet strength in knowing when to walk away. It's not about giving up or running from something. It's about understanding your own worth, your peace, and what you're no longer willing to lose just to stay where you are. We're taught that endurance means staying no matter what. That love, loyalty, and commitment mean holding on, even when holding on is breaking you. But sometimes, real courage isn't in fighting harder, it's in letting go with grace. Walking away gracefully doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you hate the person, the situation, or the version of yourself that tried so hard. It simply means you've reached a point where you can love something and still choose yourself. There's power in realizing that peace is more important than proving a point, that not every battle deserves your presence, not every apology has to be heard, and not every ending has to be loud. Most people don't understand that walking away can be an act of love, love for your growth, your boundaries, and your sanity. We often hold on because we're afraid of being alone, of what others will think, of starting over. But staying somewhere you no longer belong drains the life out of you piece by piece. You begin to shrink yourself just to fit into places that can no longer hold the person you've become. And that's no way to live. You can't build peace on top of pain. Think about the moments when you've walked away before. It might have hurt. It might have felt like failure. But with time, didn't it lead you somewhere better? There's a certain kind of clarity that comes after the storm. You realize that some endings aren't punishments, they're protection. The things that fall apart often make room for something truer to emerge. And when you look back, you'll see that walking away was never the end of your story. It was the beginning of your freedom. I once knew someone who stayed in a situation that was draining them. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. They believed that loyalty meant sacrifice, even when it came at the expense of their own peace. One day, they finally decided to leave. No anger, no revenge, no drama, just quiet acceptance that they deserved better. For a while, the silence after that decision felt unbearable. But eventually, that silence turned into stillness, and that stillness turned into strength. They didn't just walk away from something, they walked toward themselves. That's the essence of walking away gracefully. It's not about slamming doors or proving you're right. It's about leaving without bitterness, carrying only lessons, not resentment. It's about preserving your dignity even when someone else couldn't see your value. You can forgive and still walk away. You can care and still choose distance. You can wish someone well and still know they no longer have a place in your life. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. The world often mistakes stillness for indifference, but there's a quiet rebellion in choosing peace when chaos tries to pull you back. There's a deep kind of maturity in knowing that you don't have to explain your peace to anyone. The truth is, you don't owe closure to every person who hurt you. Sometimes the closure is found in your decision to move forward. Sometimes peace is the only explanation you need. When you walk away gracefully, you're not walking toward emptiness, you're walking toward clarity. You're making space for the kind of love, purpose, and peace that won't ask you to sacrifice yourself to keep it. And yes, it will hurt. Growth always does. But someday, you'll look back and realize that the moment you stopped trying to fix what wasn't yours to fix, you began to heal. Because the art of walking away isn't about loss. It's about choosing yourself without needing permission. And there's nothing more graceful or more powerful than that. There's something profoundly liberating about not needing to be seen. In a world obsessed with visibility, with proving and performing, choosing to step out of the spotlight can feel like rebellion. We're constantly told that to matter we must be noticed, that our lives are measured by how many people are watching. But the truth is, being unseen doesn't mean being insignificant. Sometimes it means you're finally free, free from expectation, free from comparison, free from the exhausting need to perform for approval. When you no longer need to be seen, you begin to live differently. Your choices become quieter but more authentic. You stop moving for applause and start moving with intention. There's no pressure to impress, no need to explain, no desire to outshine anyone. You start doing things not because the world is watching, but because your soul is calling. That's where the real beauty of life begins, in the moments that no one else witnesses. The quiet mornings, the private victories, the small acts of kindness no one will ever know about. That's where truth lives. We live in a culture that worships exposure. Everyone wants their story to be seen, their success to be celebrated. But what if the most meaningful parts of your story were meant to unfold in private? What if growth happens best when no one's looking? Like a seed buried in the dark, your strength develops in silence. You don't see it, you can't post about it, but it's happening. The roots are forming, preparing you for something greater. There's a strange kind of peace that comes when you stop craving recognition. You begin to realize that the people who need to see you, the ones who truly matter, already do. The rest is just noise. You start valuing depth over display, connection over attention. You begin to live not to be noticed, but to be fulfilled. And that shift changes everything. Suddenly you're not competing anymore, you're just existing fully, freely, honestly. I once met someone who spent years trying to build a life that looked perfect. Every achievement, every photo, every detail was carefully crafted to impress others. From the outside, it looked like success. But inside, they felt hollow. Because everything they did was for validation, not joy. The day they chose to step away from it all, to stop posting, to stop performing, to simply live, they felt something they hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real, quiet, grounding peace. For the first time, they weren't chasing admiration, they were chasing meaning. And that changed everything. Being unseen teaches you to find worth within yourself. You stop asking the world to confirm your value because you already know it. You stop fearing invisibility because you realize your light doesn't depend on who's looking. It shines regardless. The sun doesn't need to announce its rise. The moon doesn't beg to be admired. They exist in their own rhythm, quietly powerful. You can too. When you embrace being unseen, life becomes softer but richer. You start listening more than you speak. You start feeling more than you show. You begin to experience life as it is, not as it's performed. And strangely enough, that's when you become your most magnetic, because authenticity has a way of glowing even in the shadows. The freedom of being unseen isn't about disappearing. It's about returning. returning to yourself, to your peace, to your truth. It's understanding that your existence doesn't need to be broadcast to be meaningful, that your worth doesn't rise and fall with attention, that sometimes the most powerful lives are the quiet ones, the ones lived deeply, sincerely, and without the need for an audience. So don't be afraid to step back. Don't fear the quiet or the invisibility that comes with it, because in that stillness, in that beautiful space of being unseen, you finally meet the most honest version of yourself. And that's where freedom truly begins. So when you find yourself torn between peace and attention, choose peace. Because peace doesn't fade when the spotlight goes off. It stays, it grows, and it carries you through storms that attention could never survive. The loudest voice in the room isn't always the strongest. Sometimes the one who says nothing has already found everything.